All right, everyone. Welcome to the Urban Outcast. I am your host, the Outcast, Mark Urban. All right, so as I continue to interview interesting people throughout Bellingham and Whatcom County, I have another person with me who actually resides in Lynden, who has had some experience, a little bit of politics, dabbling in the local school board and stuff, who has some interesting takes on things, and just like to hear more about what he says. So I have with me local Lyndenite, Nick Sawka. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So you first of all, tell me a little bit about you. Like, you're not originally from here.
No, I'm actually from a small town called Brownsville, Pennsylvania. It's in Southwest PA.
Heard of it?
It's
Yeah.
about 30 miles south of Pittsburgh. And, population of 4,000 people, hardworking, blue-collar people, a real salt of the earth. And I wouldn't trade where I grew up for anything, because I really think that made me the person that I was today, but also it's just a beautiful place to live. We had extreme everything, extreme winters, extreme springs, extreme falls.
More extreme than here?
Yes, very more extreme than here. We always had a pool because you could have the pool open 4 months out of the year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we get those summers here sometimes. We've had a few of them, but unfortunately, usually what comes along with that is the fires and smoke too. So,
Yep.
But, so what brought you out here?
Okay, so here's an interesting story. I was in the Coast Guard for 20 years. My wife, who's Canadian, she told me, she said, "Look, dude, I followed you around the country for 20 years. We moved 6 times in 20 years, like every 3 years, like clockwork." And she said, "I'm not moving again, and we're living by my parents." And I'm like, okay. So if I ever wanted to see my kids again, I guess I got to follow her, right? So
Happy wife, happy life.
So we ended up falling into a real nice house that through a family friend. And it was a good situation. It worked out good for us. And, I wouldn't take it back for anything. In fact, I really believe that things happen for a reason, because, I bought the house on FaceTime,
Really?
Yeah, the neighbor was, the owner was walking me through it, and she's like, "Yeah, we got this over here, and this is the pantry, and this is how this comes out." And my wife's like, "That's our house." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah." And even now, whenever I go outside or I walk through the halls, I think to myself, this is our house. It feels like I've lived here for 40 years. And that's why I love the town so much.
Is it similar to Brownsville?
It's similar to what Brownsville was. Brownsville was sort of like in a rebirth. Like, they lost a lot, after a lot of the steel industry went away, things like that. What's interesting about Brownsville is, back in the 1800s, they said that Pittsburgh wouldn't be anything because it was too close to Brownsville.
Really?
So, but no, they're forging a comeback. They're doing a lot of good things, but they have to work their way back. Whereas like Lynden has maintained for 140 years.
Yeah, and they're growing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good things happening in Lynden. So I'm very happy that me and my family have that place to call home.
So your wife brought you out here, and she's Canadian, so I'm guessing she's probably from the BC area.
Yeah, so she's from Surrey, a little beach town called Crescent Beach. Okay. And she's from there, and that's a beautiful place over there. But come on, man, I'm American through and through. I'm not living in Canada.
Well, and as an American, you served in the military, which is, you were talking about moving a lot. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Coast Guard. So I was essentially a 911 operator for the Coast Guard. Think logistics, think equipment, personnel transfer, stuff like that. A lot of craziness, making sure that cutters had what they needed. And I say cutters, like 400-foot boats, had what they needed in the Pacific Ocean in order to stop drug dealers. Making sure that helicopters had what they needed in order to go and pull somebody off of a cliff face in in Astoria, Oregon. So dealing with that whole dynamic, sort of a 911 command center type feel.
You mentioned drug dealers. That's interesting. That's a huge topic right now with fentanyl and everything. How much does the Coast Guard participate in, the war on drugs?
A lot. So they are actually, we're everywhere. I mean, we're on the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. We have at any given time, we probably have several huge vessels in the water, primarily looking for drug interdiction and for any sort of drug trafficking. So people coming up from Ecuador, Central America, trying to get stuff into Mexico so they can transport it up. Coast Guard's there.
Yeah. So do you work with local authorities as well then?
No.
Is it mostly just...
It would be, so in some cases you would work with local authorities, like especially on the back end. But for the most part, we're working with like national agencies of other
DEA.
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're liaising with other countries. Like I'll tell you an interesting story. So we had, I was in the District 11 PAC Area Command Center, and we got a call.
Where's that?
That is in Alameda, California.
Okay.
So we're in Alameda, California, and I'm in this command center, and I have the command duty officer watch. So I'm sort of like the supervisor, right? And I'm watching junior officers, senior enlisted. And we get this call that this guy who was detached, a Coast Guardsman who was detached on a Navy vessel, was complaining of headaches, and he didn't feel well, and then he had collapsed. And we're like, oh my God, what's going on? So long story short, what ended up happening was we had to coordinate a C-130 to come out of Clearwater, Florida, come all the way around, pick this guy up in I think Honduras, off the coast, transport him by helicopter, then get him on the big aircraft, the Bird, and then fly him all the way up to Mexico City. The thing is that we had worked it out with the Mexican president in order to use his private runway.
Really?
In order to get this thing done. But the weather sucked, and the pilot came on, and I was talking to him, and he's like, look, this is terrible weather. We're not going to land here. We're just going to take him to Fort Hood. And we'll take him back, land in Texas, do the thing, and then we'll head back Clearwater. And I was like, okay, cool. So, that was something that was really cool.
And you were part of air traffic. What was your part in this?
So my part is constant communications, making sure that aircraft is where it needs to be, making sure it's following, making sure it's checking in, making sure that whenever that guy lands, that the medical staff knows exactly what they need to do. Turned out he had a brain aneurysm. The individual had some sort of bleeding on his brain. So it was terrible, especially for a guy in his 30s, right?
Stuff like that happens so, I wouldn't say so often, but it does happen. In fact, I just got back from a memorial funeral from somebody who died who just had a sudden heart. They think she had a hole in her heart, and they just never knew about it. And one day it just was it. So crazy stuff like that happens. But man, to be that far out there,
yeah,
and then all the way to Fort Hood,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, those birds were turning, and our long range aircraft is pretty good, even though we have an older fleet.
Really,
we've got the Hercules aircraft. It's pretty good, but it's something you think about these things, and you're like, you start counting on your hand, and you're like, holy shit, that was 8 years ago.
Yeah,
it's wild.
So speaking of that, are you still in the military? Or
no, I'm retired.
Officially retired.
I was on the 20-year, the 2010 plan, as I called it. I did 20 years in about 10 days.
Wow. 20 years. Okay.
Yeah, I had it mapped out to where that I came in July 9th, 2001, and then I ended up retiring August 1st, 2020 or 2021. So
that's funny because there's a gun guy I used to watch a lot. You might have heard of Chris Costa. He started Magpul. He was one of the head guys that started Magpul.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, he was in the Coast Guard, and he used to tell some funny stories about some of the stuff that, they were, a lot of drug dealer
Yeah.
stuff, Mexican cartels, and
Interesting fact about the Coast Guard. They were one of the last branches to start testing for urinalysis.
oh, really?
Yeah. So up until like the mid 80s, whenever I first got in, people would always, some old sailors would tell stories about, lighten up. And I'm like, what the hell? Because whenever you're in it, it's like, they have the right and they have the ability to check any vital on your body at any given time, drop of a hat, right?
Yeah, because you're kind of owned.
You're kind of owned.
Yeah.
But to hear that sort of stuff, and to hear that, like, we were allowed to used to have beards, and I'm just like, this is crazy. It's like, like Pirates of the Caribbean or some shit, Just,
yeah. Nowadays,
weird.
unless you're a special operator, you're clean and high and tight.
Shaven.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I like never cut my facial hair, because
so many years of
I'm making up for
you're
past
making
time.
up for it.
Like I'll never.
I'm surprised you don't have a great big old, Gandalf the Wizard kind of deal going by now.
I should think about that.
Yeah, you know what? You could pull off Gandalf. Actually,
I probably could.
You could. You kind of almost have the look younger, much younger, but yeah,
a younger, more refined.
Yeah. Look at that camera right there. Let's get a good shot of you. I'm gonna do some superimposing and put a little wizard hat on you and see what you can be for Halloween.
Oh man, that would be funny.
So you retired?
Yeah.
How long ago now?
It'll be 3 years.
Okay.
So
and then how long have you been out here now in Lynden?
3 years. So
you retired and moved out.
Yeah, it was like boom, boom. Like my retirement was on a Friday, and a week after that, we were in the car ready to rock and roll once the kids were out of school.
So you're retired. You're out here in Lynden, living the life. You're making mama happy. So now what do you do?
So I actually work for CHS Northwest. I work in their energy department. So I kind of, it's funny, these parallels between military life and civilian life, right? I do the exact same thing I did in the military, but now I'm just helping old ladies get their propane tanks filled. You know what I mean? It's so funny. And, I'm on the phone with them. Oh, yeah, I see that. We need to credit that to your account, yeah. It's a mistake on our part. We'll get somebody out there tomorrow. But it's
damage control.
Yeah. And I work with a good group of people. Like
I've heard good stuff about CHS.
Yeah. I work with a good group of people. The benefits are great. The pay's good. But what it does is it allows me to have that free time to really get in with my kids, right? Because my philosophy is this. Being a good parent is very selfish. And what I mean by that is I don't want my kids to have that conversation whenever I'm 80 years old. Like, Dad ain't coming to live with me because he was an asshole. Right. So I'm trying to be the best dad I can. So hopefully they'll feel some pity for me and be like, we'll put him in our basement.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my take on parenting. You got to think of it in a selfish way.
Well, as you get older too, the brevity of life sinks in and you realize that having a large quiver can be a benefit when you get older. Yeah. I mean, I really didn't want kids per se, just because I was a on the go guy, busy. I don't have time for kids, right? I've got one. Mm-hmm. I mean, now I'm thinking, wouldn't be so bad to have one or two more, that are about in their teens. I don't necessarily want, younger kids, but I'm past. But I mean, you look at it and go, gosh, what's gonna, when I'm old, who's going to come see me? So yeah. How many kids you have?
I only have two.
Okay. And they're what?
One is 11 and one's 12.
Boy, girl.
11. Two girls. One's 12, one's 8.
Two girls. Oh, man.
And they're
you do need a gun.
Yeah, I do need a gun, but they are the reason why I do everything that I do, right? Like so many times, whenever it was just me and Jill, you kind of think of like, maybe I'll just give up on the Coast Guard, go do something else. But, just like we talked before, the second you have that kid, it's game over. The whole game changes. It's a whole new ball game. So,
yeah, for a decent, normal human being, that kind of is the case. You realize that now you are responsible for another living human being.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's always the D-bags out there that don't care and whatever, but most decent human beings, it's like, that's the thing that mellows them out. I hear that story all the time. It's like, man, I was wild until I had kids, and it's like, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, there's definitely ulterior benefits to having children. They usually, anyway, straighten you out a little bit.
Yep. Straighten
And
me
now
out.
you're stressing out about other things, especially with girls. Whew.
Yeah, it's you
Especially
know,
today,
yeah.
with social media and the sexualization of children so prevalent.
And we've got and you know what, as a parent, back in the day you used to worry about, okay, I got one television in my house, I got to watch what's on that television.
Right.
There are screens everywhere.
Oh man. They're in your hand all day long.
Yeah. And so I made a deal with my oldest. I said, you are not getting a cell phone until you're in ninth grade. I said, you're going to have one of the greatest Christmases in ninth grade. Why? Because you're going to get a cell phone for that Christmas.
Yeah.
I want you to count down to that day. But we started getting into a situation where she wanted to go hang out with her friends and, sort of be alone. And we had no way to communicate with her. So I was like, shit.
Right.
But I'm one of these guys. I'm pretty firm, man of my word. So I used to skate around, and I went and got her an Apple Watch. And so she has an Apple Watch. That way,
because the Apple Watches don't need a phone per se. You can hook those up without. Yeah,
you can get a one that runs off of cellular towers.
Yeah,
and she has her own number.
And you can track her.
And you can track her.
Perfect.
Big brother. But yeah, I mean, raising kids in the 21st century and in the 2020s is you got to be on it all the time. It's a tough game.
Yeah. Especially for young men, I mean, you got all kinds of porn and crap. Just, a split second away at your fingertips. I've had to have that talk with my son just about how it's destructive and brain rotting it is. And just the fact that I said, look, man, you get on there and you don't know if you're watching somebody that's been sex trafficked, and now you've got the FBI watching you. I put a little fear in him. I said, now you've got the government watching you. Now you're on their list. And it was like, well,
so here's one for you. I can remember my mom, questioning whether or not, having a conversation with my dad. She told me about it later on, like a year or so later, on whether or not to give me the swimsuit issue from the Sports Illustrated subscription she got me for Christmas.
How old were you?
Oh, I was 14, 15 years old. I'm taking 45-minute showers. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say, you got crusty socks laying all over your bedroom floor.
Exactly. What's this guy doing, right? Open up a window in here. So, my whole thing was, and I thought that to be so interesting because, you think about the problem of just a swimsuit edition.
Oh, man.
Right?
And I like that better than naked, actually.
And
because it leaves something for the imagination.
Exactly. But now we're at a completely different level where there's no barriers. The governor's been pulled. You know what I mean? It's just free roam. And
well, nowadays you got to be careful. It's not some transgender guy that's stuffed his package and, he's like, wow, that chick's hot. Oh, wait a minute.
Well,
what is that?
Well, I have my thoughts on that too, right? I kind of think it's kind of, and I know it's going to sound terrible, but it's kind of false advertising, right? Like,
absolutely, it's absolutely false advertising.
And
anyway, wow, it's just I don't know. That's stuff I just never. I steered away from it anyway. I'm just like, I'm just not gonna take the chance.
Cup of tea.
Not my I like the real thing, but. So, there's lots of stuff out there that we've got, it's a bittersweet thing. Having technology has given us so many opportunities, so many benefits, so many comforts and conveniences that, I don't want to give them up. My phone's stuck in my hand all day long because of everything I do. It's business, it's podcasts, it's social media. I have to really learn to take time away from it sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Look, I've left my phone before at the bar and you're panicking.
Yep.
Because you can't get a hold of anybody to find out where your phone's at. You got to get on your computer. And out here, I don't have internet. I use my phone hotspot. So I had to go to the neighbor's house and
Be like, can I use
Hey,
your internet?
I need you to get a hold of so-and-so for me and let them know that I left my phone at this place. And could you, and so a good friend of mine went down and, oh yeah, it's here and got it for me and everything. But there's a panic when that first happens.
It is. It's a lot of anxiety, and I think it's subconscious too. If I'll usually keep my phone in my pocket. I'll wear cargo pants or cargo shorts, and I'll feel around, and I'm like, what? For like a split second, wondering where it's at.
Do you ever get the phantom vibrates?
No, I've never experienced that.
I have.
I guess people have.
I haven't even had my phone on me, and I'm like, oh, what the? Seriously, it's weird. It's like, or your belt buckle or something will brush or and you think it's your phone vibrating. I don't know. It's weird stuff, man. Who knows? I mean, sometimes I wonder if they didn't, something isn't now perforated into my skin from this stupid phone. They're always listening.
Yep,
So, but
that they are.
Yeah. So you were running for school board, is that right, in Lynden?
Yeah, I ran for school board in Lynden, and I lost. I got hammered. A lot of people said it was because I was new. Some people said it was because I wasn't religious enough. So there's a myriad
it's
of
Lynden.
things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I made a promise to my kids, and I still have this promise to them, which is I'm going to run every single cycle until one of two objectives get met. Either I win or both of my kids graduate out of the system. Like, that will happen.
What motivates you to do that?
Again, I want to take care of my kids.
But what does that mean, to take care of your kids? What is it that concerns you that you don't just say, oh, the school board's good enough where it's at?
I think so COVID, the masks, everything that's starting to come out about that. But I went to my first school board meeting and I told these people, I looked them all in the eye and I said, look, most people, they'll be fine with letting you guys fly the plane, but I'm not. I want in the cockpit. I want to see how the sausage is made.
Right. And
I'm going to run for school board. And so I ran and I signed up the first day. And then, I hustled, man. I mean, I knocked on 2,500 doors.
Well, I saw your name around a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's good. At least thank God it's getting out.
In fact, you're one of the names that I saw the most.
And see, that's the other thing too, right? My personal opinion is that a lot of people take this stuff for granted, right?
Oh, of course they do.
I go to this church or I belong with this or I belong with that. And people will just vote for me because they know Bob down the street.
Right.
I didn't have that.
Right.
I was playing from behind every single day. So whenever I skipped a day from door knocking, I'd be kind of hard on myself and be like, dude, you really got to go out and knock on some doors. And I did good for myself. I mean, I got 2,500 and change votes, and I knocked on 2,500 doors, met 1,500 people, met some of the nicest people you're ever going to meet.
Well, you've done the legwork. At least you've set yourself up for perhaps the next time.
Yeah, and that's really where I'm going, right? I want to make sure that my name's out there and it stays fresh, because ultimately, what I feel is important. We could all say, hey, the governor's race or the president or this, that, or the other. But where it really starts, the nooks and the crannies of it all, is at the lowest rung of political office.
Absolutely.
Which is the school boards, which is the schools.
Yep.
We've got to make sure that we're churning out kids that are going to be good, productive members of society. And I don't feel as if...
You mean they can't just be community organizers, social justice warriors?
No,
and
that's not going to pay the
safe
bills.
space propagators? Really?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, gee. Bummer. Okay.
And I just, my thought process is, I just don't think anybody could do a good job as I can. I mean, I really care about this stuff. And it's not that I care about kids, right? I mean, I do care about kids, but it's not that that's my catchphrase. Like, oh, Nick Sawka, he cares about kids. What I care about is helping parents become better parents. So that they can better understand and navigate the system to better raise their kids.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I've never heard it put that way. That is a huge thing, because parents these days are often, in my opinion, what I've seen between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
They don't have any, the schools want to take away any jurisdiction over their children, but yet they're responsible for everything their child does.
Yep.
How do you navigate that?
Well, that's just like with the, who was that? The director of education saying that school boards don't have to listen to the parental rights bill.
Here in Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, what's her name?
Rydell.
Yeah.
Is it Rydell or?
I can't remember now. I know it's
a guy.
Is it a guy?
I thought it was a guy.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe the whiskey's getting to me.
Well, no, I think they're maybe it's the national education person I was thinking of.
Are you thinking of Randy Weingarten?
Yeah, Weingarten.
Oh God,
Weingarten.
Randy Weingarten,
piece of work.
The bane of my existence. But and here's the funny thing about the school board, school unions, teachers unions. I'll tell you something about that real quick. But the fact of the matter is that what they're trying to do in Washington is say that if a kid, the schools don't necessarily have to reveal some information to the parents. I say bullshit. Until you're 18 years old,
Absolutely.
you are essentially under your parents' guardianship.
According to the law.
Unless you're emancipated. Now, there are going to be small minority, percentages of where situations like that wouldn't be in the safety of the child. But that is not the rule.
That's
that is by far.
That's the exception, yeah.
That is by far the exception. And for you to put that sort of message out there tells me that these people who are in control obviously have not read 1984, because if they had, they would understand that they're pushing too far and pushing too much. You do not co-parent with the state.
No, if they read 1984, their heads would explode.
Or they would be like, oh, this is cool.
Well, that's actually more like, they're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Animal Farm or any of those.
My God.
Atlas Shrugged. I mean, you go down the line.
You know what? I mean, people talk about required reading lists and banning books in schools. If it was up to me, the kids would have to be required to read Atlas Shrugged. They would be required to read 1984. They'd be required to read Animal Farm, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
They're prophetic.
Oh my God. They're so far ahead of their time.
They're prophetic. I mean, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to go back and I need to go back and touch up on those too, just because, so I can articulate it better. But yeah, that thought just came to me. I mean, those are prophetic books. 1984 is like, I mean, come on, we're living this stuff.
Yeah.
What's the other one, that book that Glenn Beck wrote, Agenda 21? That's another one that's like, wow. I mean, how insightful is that? Yeah, and things are happening so fast that it's hard for the average person to keep up. I started doing these segments called Cognitive Dissonance, and it's basically just, these little shorts testing, throwing out stuff that you're not going to believe right off the gate. It's like, okay, well, let's take a look at it, before you just go, oh, there's no way. We used to say that, the old today's, conspiracy, give it 6 months or less. And, so things are moving so fast, and the average person cannot I got kids, I got to come home, make dinner, I got all this stuff. I just can't. The problem with that is, and I'm trying to get people to understand, is you don't have a choice. It used to be it's going to be in your schools. Now it's in your schools. It used to be it's going to be in your government. Now it's coming from your government.
Yep.
It used to be it'd be on your streets and your libraries and your grocery stores. That ship sailed. Now it's at your doorstep and coming in your home.
Yep.
And that's where this whole thing is at. So you don't have a choice anymore.
Yep.
You have to start paying attention. Your life depends on it, with what's coming. And our schools are a huge target with this, the unions, the progressive, the inculcation, the indoctrination.
Oh yeah, and that was the one thing I wanted to tell you about the school, about the teachers unions. There's no sugarcoating it. About 80% of whoever is involved with schools is probably a Democrat.
I'd say 80%. Yeah,
the statistics are out there to back that up. But the one thing I learned,
it's not a mistake either.
Yeah, and the one thing I've learned about Lynden as a whole, and I walked, like whenever I said I knocked on just about everybody's door, I would come across these teachers, and they were some of the sweetest, nicest people ever. I mean, you're talking people who are there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm afraid of, is that Lynden getting, you know, like going downhill,
Infiltrated.
and, you know, like a thief in the night. And I mean, you're talking about like good God-fearing teachers. I would have to say, you know, where you would say the school board, the school unions, the teachers unions, the union itself is the problem. The teachers are not the problem.
No.
The teachers, especially in Lynden, I mean, they're some of the most phenomenal people ever. My daughter had a teacher. This guy would send emails every single day about what they did in class.
Wow.
I mean, phenomenal. And to have that sort of like
That takes effort.
mastership, you know, like the mastery of his craft.
That takes effort.
Yeah. I mean,
That's not a lazy teacher.
no.
That's somebody who cares.
Yeah, it's somebody who cares. And I think that Lynden probably on average has more of those teachers that care.
Yeah. Yeah. My kid goes to Lynden Christian, but if he didn't, I'd say Lynden would be the closest next second. There's still a lot of good teachers there. I mean, there's some of the cultural, secular element that's creeping in, but it's still this. I think even in Whatcom County altogether, most of the county schools are pretty decent.
Yeah.
You know, you start getting into, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, Squalicum and Bellingham, and forget it. They're lost. They're gone. They've been given over to just massive progressivism. I mean, you walk down the halls and it's transgenderism and LGBT stuff posted everywhere.
Well, here's a
they don't teach history unless it's Pride Month.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. I was driving on Hannigan, and it just out of the corner of my eye at that Irene Reiter Elementary. That's on
Irene
Hannigan.
Reiter, that's where I went to school, Meridian.
Well, funny thing you brought up the LGBTQ thing. They're having a Pride event, I guess. They had one on June 10th.
Irene Reiter?
Yeah.
Really? That's shocking because
it's like flat. I couldn't really
Really?
make it out. It was like event LGBTQ on their like flash screen.
I know somebody that works there. I'm gonna have to ask about that. I did not know that because Meridian's actually become one of the better schools.
Yeah.
They're relatively conservative. So that's interesting.
And here's the thing. Look, I don't have anything against anybody, right? And I believe that we should treat everybody with human decency
Absolutely.
and dignity.
Yeah.
But we have to draw a line somewhere as far as like how far off the cliff we want to go. And I just don't think that most of that stuff is a place for, it has a place in schools. I mean, if I can't get a Christmas tree in a school, I shouldn't have to deal with, you know, LGBTQ events that I may not fully agree with.
Here's what it is for me. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Your sexuality is your own personal preference.
Yep. Bang who you want to bang.
Okay? Here's what I have the problem with. I don't even have a problem with drag queens. You want to go to an adult venue to watch a drag queen? Go to an adult venue. What I have a problem is when you bring children into it. And when you force it down our throats. And when you say, we're going to have an entire month of pride showing everybody that this is what you will accept.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a straight Pride Month? Can we have a white Pride Month? Can we have, I'm a Southern Baptist Pride Month? I mean, where does it end? Like you said, where's the threshold? Okay. Oh, let's just let every man do what they want in their own eyes is what's right. Well, that's how societies collapse.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think the other thing is too, it waters down everything else, right? Like Christmas, Veterans Day, 4th of July. If you've got all this stuff going on,
The traditional holidays of America.
yeah, and I don't even, and I just look at it as it's just like a watering down of like culturalism in America.
It's a bastardization is
Yeah.
the way I would put it. And again, going back to, I don't care what you do in your bedroom so long as it stays in your bedroom.
Yeah.
I don't want heterosexuals doing stuff in the streets. I don't care. I don't want porn or straight porn out in the streets or in our kids' libraries. You've seen some of the stuff that's come across some of the inner city, especially in the bigger, more liberal cities. They're showing kids how to masturbate with bananas. There's books showing these things in libraries. And then I've watched videos of concerned citizens standing up in school board meetings
And being shot
reading
down.
reading the curriculum, reading the books in their library, and be, oh, that's inappropriate here. You need to stand down. Wait, hold on. This is in your library that you approved.
And see, and that's where I ultimately think that Lynden does do a little bit better.
Sure.
They are more aware of what's going on, and that's a great thing, because at the end, you don't get a second chance to fuck a kid up. And once it's done, it's done. And we need to honor our children and say, look, what we're going to do is we are going to play this thing straight. We're going to introduce them to the world, and we're going to do it in baby steps. We don't need to, rip off all the Band-Aids before senior year, I mean,
let kids be kids.
Exactly.
We don't need, I'm sorry, sex ed. You want to talk about the sperm and the egg and how babies are made. That's fine. We don't need to get in the pleasurable part of it.
Yeah.
I was never taught the pleasure of sex. I don't need to be taught it. I'll get it when the time comes. I don't need somebody to tell me how to pleasure a woman or how to pleasure myself. It's absurd. Show me how the egg works, how the sperm works, how the uterus, the pineal gland, all this. Great. The anatomy, great. That's what we teach, and then move on.
That, and also I can remember being in junior high and getting the shit scared out of me about AIDS because they have that. They have that, like, I think my daughter just recently had the AIDS talk. And I mean, to me,
in school.
Yeah, in school. And I think it's very important. I mean, I do, because that is.
Well, that can tie into almost like science.
Yeah, science, health class, because it's
science and health.
That's something you don't come back from.
Right.
You get it, you're dead. Right. I mean, it's a death sentence. It's measured differently for different people for different reasons. But at the end of the day, protecting kids, letting them know that. Because kids are going to have sex. It's going to happen. Teenagers, they're going to experience these things. You just have to make sure that kids are prepared for what life throws at them. But if it's up to me, at the school level, it should be just reproductive organs. This is what they're used for. This is what happens.
Right.
Bang, bam, boom. The parents have to have a major role in this too.
Absolutely.
And, they have to say, hey, listen, this is what, you may have the urge to do this, or you may have the urge to do that. Well, this could be the result of it. You could get pregnant. You could get a disease. You could,
But that's the thing, Nick. That's what the school and the liberal unions try to perpetrate, that the parents are dropping the ball. So we need to step in and we need to teach your kid these things. The parents are not qualified. We are. Remember Hillary Clinton, it takes a village, kind of thing. They want our kids because they want to control them. They want the next generation of good little monkeys that are going to obey and do what they want. And they want them just as confused and lost as they can get them, because then they can control them and say, we have the antidote. We have the solution.
That's exactly right. And I think that's why we're having a lot of even economic problems today in our society, is the fact that, as long as the government can keep you on the dole and control you and have some level of control
all about control. Yep.
It's all about control.
Yep.
Cut the population into tiny little pieces, and then pin those pieces against each other. And that's, we're seeing that. We're even seeing that in, the governor's race.
Yeah.
On the Republican Party side. I mean, the Republican Party is doing everything in its power.
The Republican Party that likes to self-sabotage?
Yeah, they are doing everything in their power to get Bob Ferguson elected. Like, they are like, I mean, they've got to be their biggest surrogate, because we now have a situation like we had, and this is local politics, we now have a situation we had with the county council position number 4 between Kathy Kirschner and Mark Strebler.
Yeah,
So
I remember
now
that.
we've got Semi Bird and Dave Reichert. And I've got people who are calling me, telling me, how could you support Semi Bird? I don't have a yard sign of his in my yard. I'm not supporting him. Well, are you supporting Dave Reichert? No, I'm supporting whoever the Republican Party is backing.
Right.
That's who I'm supporting.
Right.
And at this point, the endorsement is on Semi Bird. But the fact of the matter is that let August 6th play out. Don't don't destroy these two men's character to the point to where Bob Ferguson can steamroll over
Yeah,
them.
don't eat your own.
Don't eat your own.
The Republican Party in this state is notorious for that. And again, the Simon Sevsnick and
Ben Ellenboss.
Ben Ellenboss is a perfect example of it, guys. Hello. And you know who you are. You're doing it again with Semi Bird. You guys don't get it.
Just let it play
you
out.
Just don't get it. Kathy Kirster and Mark Stremler, you gained nothing.
Yeah.
It was a lateral move. And in fact, you lost her ability to work with the liberal women on the board and have any chance of getting anything done. Nothing against Mark Stremler. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's got a lot of work to do.
I met him.
Yeah, I think he's a great guy. I have
he's
nothing
awesome.
against him, and I support him now that he's in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you didn't gain anything. And I used to hear stuff, well, she supports abortion, which is garbage, or she voted for this thing that it was a non-consensual vote. It had nothing. It was already won. She was trying to reach across, saying, "Okay, I'll work with you on this.
If you
work with
me
us on
that.
this," and there were so many people from a certain camp that just doing the same thing again, and they just. And I'm a religious guy. And I'm not religious. I'm a Christian.
Yep.
These people are religious ideologues. Everything is about, well, this is, they bring the religious, we're so godly, we're so this. And it's like, okay, you have to be shrewd as snakes, gentle as doves. You're not being gentle as doves, and you're definitely not being shrewd as snakes. You're just being vipers.
Yeah.
And you're biting your own party. Okay, you have to choose which hills you want to die on. You have to be strategic. If you want to be shrewd as a snake, going back to the Kathy Kirsten race, again, it's like, she's doing fine. Okay, leave her in there. She's got some clout. No. She voted for this one thing, or she believes this, and she's a rhino. And I was like, oh.
I
Ben
would,
Ellenboss supported her, and he's not a rhino.
Yeah.
He was like 100% behind her. And it's like, get off your religious high horse, you guys. I'm a Christian too. I'll sit around and debate theology with you all day long if you want. You want to pull on each other's, we want to point each other's sin and all that. Okay, we can do that. But this is stupid. This is where we need to come together, put aside that crap, and look at who's doing the best job right now.
and I mean, think about this, right? Think about Dave Reichert, congressman, sheriff,
Green River Murder.
Green River Killer.
Yeah.
Phenomenal resume.
Absolutely.
This guy is awesome.
Stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Semi Bird. Retired military veteran,
guy. Good
special
guy.
forces, served in Iraq, served overseas, was on a school board during COVID,
Yeah.
fought the system. You know the guy's a fighter.
Right.
But being that there's some memo from 15 years ago, it said he was a shitbag. We've got to completely discount everything
Right.
that the guy's done in his life. What happens if he gets the more votes on August 6th? Now you've just discredited him in front of everybody. You've alienated half of your party. People aren't going to vote for the other guy because that wasn't their guy, just like you probably wouldn't vote for the other guy because it wasn't your guy. And what have we lost? Well, we've lost the governorship, and we gave it to a guy that supports, genital mutilation on kids.
Well, like I told you earlier, look, I don't know a lot about Semi Bird. I think he's great. I think he's got a problem with his name.
Huh?
I mean, I know that sounds petty. People are going, Mark, you're being petty. Okay, you guys,
No, you need a name.
look
man.
at your voting base.
Yep.
Semi Bird. What is this? What the hell is a Semi Bird? People are going to be like, what? First time I heard his name, I'm like, what? Who is that?
They call him Semi Bird, but his real name is, it's like, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Well,
It
the
begins with
name
an
is
M.
huge.
Name is huge.
Name recognition is huge. Okay. And so you take Semi Bird, who may be a great guy, but has a weird name, who nobody knows much about. And you take Dave Reichert, who the Semi Bird camp wants to say, well, he's a rhino. Okay. Hold on. Let's look through this. Let's walk through this logically. I'm going to take the guy who has a better chance with a better resume of beating Bob Ferguson. I will take a rhino any day over a no-name guy who may be great, okay? I'll take a rhino any day over a far-left progressive liberal. And guess what's going to happen? Far-left progressive liberal is going to win. I 100% guarantee it if Semi Bird is the candidate. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I'll bet $1,000 to
see-
anyone.
See, I kind of disagree with you on that.
Okay, let's do this.
Well, I kind of disagree
No,
with you.
I like that though.
Well, and here's why.
Tell me why. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Because I think there's too many unknowns, right? So you look,
How so?
try to find a poll that matches Semi Bird against Bob Ferguson. You can't.
Well, not yet. Yeah.
No, you can't. But you can find 10 of them that is Dave Reichert versus Bob Ferguson. You cannot find polls that have Bob Ferguson versus Semi Bird. Semi Bird has essentially flown under the radar.
Well, yeah.
And he has,
I agree with that.
And he
I
has
agree with
he
that.
has racked up all of these county endorsements. Like I think he's got 23 of them now out of like the 39 or 36 counties in Washington. So he's doing his traveling, his homework, he's getting his name out there. I think he's probably going to suffer from, Nick Sawka syndrome. I think people either aren't going to align with him on what he believes, or he's just going to be an unknown name, and it's going to take some time for him to get out there. I still think it's the
unknown name. I really do. I think that's a big part of it. I think he's probably a fabulous guy. Mm-hmm. I have nothing wrong with it. He's just another. He's like
Lauren Culp.
Lauren Culp. Let me tell you, and again, I know I'm going to sound petty. The first time I heard that guy speak, I was so underwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was so underwhelmed. I'm like, this is who we're running against. God, really, Republicans? This is all we can come up. He had kind of a voice like, I don't know. I was like, who is this guy? Everything.
I wasn't here for that. So
no, you weren't, but I
wasn't here.
And so I'm just like, I got, and I was right. He didn't even come close to winning. I mean, I could tell. I'm like, guys, this guy's not gonna win. Well, that's who we got to stand behind. It's like Republicans. Guys, got to pull your head out. You got to start playing. The Democrats are playing 3D chess, and you're still playing checkers. And
I agree.
These are the candidates
100%.
that we're getting. We need somebody charismatic, intelligent, who's willing to get in the weeds and stop with this. Oh, well, we're going to be above the other side. Okay, you can't. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Water just don't work.
That's right.
Okay. And so we keep getting these candidates that don't want to get in the weeds. And look, even Dave Reichert is a little too polished at sometimes for me. He's a Republican.
Well, for me, my honest opinion is I find him to come off very cocky.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't like that in a person. Now, I'm a Trumper, so that I'm kind of like it's kind of like me speaking out both sides of my head, because Trump comes off very cocky, very arrogant.
Sure.
But there's a different kind of arrogance with Trump, where the arrogance from Reichert almost seems elitist, where Trump just wants to tell you how big of a penis he has.
Right.
There's a difference there, right?
And that is a concern with Reichert.
Yeah,
it is. It is. I think he's who I'm going to vote for, but I get it. He is a rhino. He's a rhino.
I haven't made a decision yet, and quite frankly, I'm not even going to think about it until the ballot shows up at my door. Like, I think that
you flip a coin.
I'm probably going to flip a coin. No, but I mean,
you have just as good of a chance these days.
Yeah,
might as well.
Yeah, you might as well.
Why can't we just get one? We got.
Why didn't somebody go to these two individuals and say, "Look,
right,
this is bad for the party as a whole. We need to unify now."
Because you know why? Here's why. That's my opinion. You got too damn many old hats in there who still play. They don't do conservatism. They do republicanism. And this is what I tell people. I am not a Republican. I'm a registered independent. I've had to choose to be a Republican in this state.
Yep.
Okay. I'm a conservative. I do conservatism. I don't do republicanism. And that's the problem with the Republican Party, is they're always doing republicanism. They're not doing conservatism.
And some of the moves come off as if they're not listening to the people.
No, they're listening to the RNC.
Well, I mean, you take the whole Semi Bird thing, for instance, right? This guy had like 1,800 delegates or something, the largest concentration of Republicans in the state, and they voted for him. And the only thing the Riker campaign can say, well, it's a hollow victory because there were some backdoor dealings and this, that, and the other. And that might be true. I mean, you're hosting it in Spokane, which is in Semi Bird's back door, his backyard. So what did you think was going to happen? And the other thing is that I just don't think it's something that is worth fighting about. We need to really just unify and say, this is going to be our guy. And I can't wait till August 6th, because to see a room full of people eat each other alive is, I mean, it's funny.
Bring the popcorn.
It's funny. You're going to eat a lot of popcorn and you're going to laugh yourself to sleep. But guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to think to yourself and go, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And why is it for the past 13 months, Democrats knew they were running Bob Ferguson?
Yeah.
I mean, even the state Republican Party, I mean, I don't know if they could do this. They should have just said, listen, this guy's our guy. We're going to try our best to elevate this individual. I mean, I know they got to let things play out. They got to have the state convention. They got to do this. They got to do that. But we need to coordinate better. We need to coordinate better.
The funny thing, it seems to me, about the Democrats is they don't even like each other.
No.
They all hate each other. But when it comes to voting and a candidate,
they are right on, man.
Unite in a heartbeat.
Lockstep.
Republicans, we act like we all like each other until the freaking election comes around. Yep. And then it's like, oh, this person is pro-choice, or maybe not pro-choice, but didn't stand against something, or this is this. And they start pulling out all this stuff. It's like, guys, stop. We need a good, intelligent, charismatic. We need a Trump-style candidate. We need somebody who doesn't give a shit about politics, but cares about the people and the state. That's the difference between Trump. Trump doesn't care about politics. That's why both sides hate him.
That's exactly
right. He
right.
doesn't care. He cares about the economy, the country, and he's a businessman.
Yep.
That's what we need. We need a guy who's not going to get butthurt or doesn't have a record about some stupid political stuff he did, that could come in as a businessman and say, this is what we need to change this state around. The fortunate thing, the only thing that saved Ferguson and any liberal in this state so far is our tech industry. The fact that Washington State is so tech rich that it's sort of floated their sinking ship. Okay, but that ain't going to last for long.
That ain't going to last
for long. That's already starting to, that ship's starting to sink.
Yep.
And, it's time for the Republicans to stop this election time infighting, acting like we like each other until the election time, and just come together and put aside the garbage and get rid of the old hat. I'm sorry, the old hat's got to go. You know how many old dudes there are still running our Republican?
Well, old men and women. I mean, that's why I really like the idea of having people in there that are in their mid-30s, early 40s, to sort of fresh that blood up.
That's that generation that's gonna save us
now.
Yeah,
we need to get in there, and we need to have our candidates in there that are in those age groups too.
Yeah,
because those are going to be the ones that are going to have the most fight. Like I had an opportunity to listen to Raul Garcia.
Oh yeah,
the guy that's running for Senate.
Yeah,
God, that guy's smart.
Is he?
And he kind of like oozes charisma, right? I like him. And I don't typically I'm not a big donor, but I could see myself cutting that guy a check because he had a good story. He was talking about how they wouldn't let him put doctor on the ballot. So he had to officially change his name to Dr. Raul Garcia. Could you imagine that?
Is he a doctor?
He is.
What kind of doctor?
Any official, a medical something, something or other.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that he changed his name legally to Doctor and put the DR in front of it so he could put the DR on the ballot.
Oh,
and I thought that was interesting.
I'm so simple. Some of the stuff I don't know. Look, I'm a critical thinker, and I just think that, again, it comes down to basic critical thinking, common sense. And the Republican Party has got to stop this. It started with Bush, and they still kind of carried through with this new tone kind of thing. And Trump turned that all upside down, and everybody got butthurt. But I tell you what, you look at this guy, you look at Trump. Okay, he's an asshole, but you know what? He's the right kind of asshole that we need.
He's my
asshole. asshole.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I'll take mean tweets and a $1.89 gas
yeah,
any day of the week.
Oh, poor baby, hurt your feelings. What does that have to do with the truth?
And here's the thing, and that's what most people don't understand. Your entire economy and society is based off of one thing, and that is the petrodollar.
Yeah.
That is the fact that other countries trade their oil in US dollars. That's the only thing that's keeping us afloat. And Trump's right. If we lowered the price of gas, which I kind of think Biden was trying to do it, but then I don't know. Gas is still too high. But if we were able to get it back down to $1.89, $2.50, maybe $2.50 with inflation, your grocery prices would go down.
Biden was doing it by emptying our oil reserves, though.
Yeah.
The dumbass. He shuts down the pipeline from Canada and then empties our oil reserves.
Well, and here's the other thing. The problem with that was our government. Our government who wouldn't allow Trump to refill it on the cheap.
Yeah.
He wanted to stockpile that shit and fill it up to the brim.
You know why? Too many overseas corporate interests.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, the bottom line is if World War II taught you anything, if you run out of fuel, you lose the war.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Germany. And if you don't have strategic oil reserve and you don't have shit like that, you will lose the war. You will lose. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let's give ourselves basically over to China.
Yep.
Let's sell all our land.
Handicap ourselves.
Let's shut down our fuel. Let's start all of a sudden, interestingly, all our processing plants start burning a couple years ago. You know, none of this stuff, I'm sorry, is coincidence.
And it doesn't happen in a bubble.
No. No. There is ulterior sources that have been led into this country. It is a coup. I'm sorry, it is. It's a coup in this country, and there are forces in our government right now that are communists that know exactly what they're doing. Look at what they're doing to Trump with the lawfare. I mean, they're setting a precedent that why obey the law? Doesn't matter anymore because we're just going to get prosecuted. We're not going to have a fair trial to the president of the United States.
Or we're just going to pretzel it and manipulate the law into what we want it to be. Whenever you take a look at the trial itself, and a lot of people will be like, well, you're just saying that because you're a Trumper. Look, you held it in a region that was 90% Democrat. That's the first thing.
Liberal state, liberal jury, liberal judge, whose daughter's a liberal activist.
Making money hand over fist.
Then you gag order him. He can't present witnesses. He can't talk. I mean, guys, his constitutional rights were destroyed.
Yeah. And further, and whenever you start to look into the actual crime, and this was funny,
It's a process crime.
Yeah, and I was watching Redacted on YouTube. Have you ever watched that?
Oh, years ago I did. Yeah.
You gotta go back. You gotta watch this one because Natalie Morris was talking and showing a video a Yale professor did, and this guy's like, "Look, I just want to do some straight talk. Just hit you guys with what I think happened in this trial." And he starts going and he starts saying, "We still don't know what the underlying crime is.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. And before you even go to trial, you need to know what you're being charged on so that you can mount your defense." And so that was kind of interesting. But then there were other things, other inconsistencies.
Well, the judge told the jury, just pick something.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be consistent.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and let you pick from these three things. And I just think this gets turned over on a pill very easily because whenever you look at what Hillary Clinton did with the Steele dossier, and her needing to pay $100,000 or something in fines, and I don't even think she paid it. I think the DNC paid it.
Right.
I mean, whenever you start thinking about that, and you start looking at the parallels between that and what Trump did, but even what Trump did isn't even against the law.
No.
No. Then the National Enquirer guy said, yeah, we killed stories for Schwarzenegger. We killed stories for this person, that person. And, I don't know. I find it to be very, very strange.
Well, what they want to do before this election, and they're not even telegraphing it, they're saying it. We want to say, look at these Republicans voting for a felon.
That's it.
Look at these Republicans who are voting for it. They want a felon. And you know what? They just martyred him and made. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was reading a letter written by a guy who's not a Trump supporter, who says, I am probably going to vote for him now because of what they did to him.
Yeah.
Simply because of that. And the Democrats are living in feces, but they've convinced themselves it's chocolate pudding.
Yep.
And it's going to come around here pretty quick, and it's going to bite them in the ass.
Yeah, and with the increasing decline of our fearless leader, I think they're
starting the process of getting rid of him already.
They're priming the pump.
Question is who they're going to run.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame because you have Joe Blow, blue-collar Democrat, union guy, this, that, the other, sitting in the middle of Detroit somewhere. He never got a say. You forced Joe Biden down his throat. Maybe Dean Phillips was a hell of a guy, but you never gave him that. Maybe RFK was your guy.
Look at what they're doing to RFK.
Yeah.
He had to go independent.
Yeah.
Because his own party ostracized him.
And I still think that this election, if Biden is on the ticket, is going to play out like a reverse Ross Perot, where Ross Perot hurt George Bush and pulled from Republicans. I think RFK is going to pull from Democrats. It's going to hurt Joe Biden, and Trump is going to elevate Trump.
Right.
You're starting to see that now with all the polling coming out and everything like that, because people are realizing that even if you hate Donald Trump, you still remember that your gas was $2.
Yep.
You still find him to be a competent man.
Our border was getting secure.
Yeah. People feared him.
Crime from illegal immigrants was down. Our enemies feared us.
Yep.
He had Putin, China, Xi Jinping all under control.
Yeah. Funniest thing I ever heard, and you can look this up on YouTube. John Daly is sitting around a table with a bunch of people, and I think he has Trump on the phone, or he's telling this story, and Trump goes, I told Putin that if he went into Ukraine, I would bomb Moscow. I looked him in the eye and I told him that.
I remember that story.
And I don't know if he took me serious. Maybe he only took me 10% serious, but I can tell you right now, he never invaded Moscow, or he never invaded Ukraine on my watch.
That's right.
And I thought to myself, like, holy shit.
You know why? It's because the rest of the world thought Trump was just crazy enough to do it.
Yes. He was like Ronald Reagan. He was the cowboy.
Look at what he did with Soleimani.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anyone. He just annihilated him. And then the DNC was like, oh, you were supposed to leave us in on this. Like, yeah, so you could announce it to him?
What about the Al-Qaeda member that he ended up killing? And he was like...
Oh, and he cried.
He cried like a baby.
You see,
like a baby.
Did you see Shane, the comedian, what's his name? Shane Gillis do that?
No.
Oh, he does a piece on that, and it's hilarious.
Oh, my God.
He just... Well, and that's another thing. Look at all these, what were left-wing comedians now who are voting for Trump. Yeah. I watch comedy, and I tell you, these guys are coming out of the woodwork now. Look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan goes, I don't even know what happened to the left. I was in the left, and they just disappeared. I mean, they went completely the opposite way. I mean, they're just gone. He goes, I never thought I'd be voting for Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, and I think Joe Rogan needs to get off the pot. He really needs to get him on his podcast and talk to him. Yeah, get Trump on his podcast. And Trump needs to sit down for long form things. Like, Trump has this sort of like style about him where he'll browbeat you with the same talking point over and over again.
Oh, he's got it. Yeah, he's got stuff.
It's sort of his modus operandi. But, there's a lot of stuff in there whenever he starts throwing out other things. I listened to one of the depositions in that E. Jean Carroll case.
Oh.
It was the funniest thing.
Is that the rape case?
Yes.
That's the one where the gal basically said, well, it wasn't really rape. It was more like, an intellectual rape or something like that.
Yeah, like, supposedly he goes into a store.
And then she talks about how thrilling it was.
Yeah, in the mid-'80s, and they just do it right there, and nobody knows the nevermind, and then you wait until... Anyhow, they're in the deposition. They're about 6 hours into it. You could tell Trump's frustrated. And... he says, the lawyer says something like, yeah, but you referred to her as being not your type. And Trump says something to the effect of, well, I mean, she's not my type, and quite frankly, you're not either. And I'm like, holy I'm like, how does this guy, what? I mean, he says what's on his mind.
He's almost like he's on the spectrum.
Yes.
It's almost like,
You know what he has? He's run out of fucks.
oh, dude, he does
And
it.
he has the old man syndrome.
Yeah.
You know how like
Yeah.
people, like old men
Get
will
off
just,
my lawn.
yeah, get off my lawn. You know what I
It's so
mean?
true.
That's what he has.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
that's what we need right now.
That's what we
We
need.
need a leader that's going to say, "I don't care. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but I'm going to destroy yours."
And I think we also sort of like romanticize people, right? Like I have this thing where I romanticize both of my grandparents, because both my grandfathers were drafted into the military. One was drafted in the World War II, helped liberate the Italy, and crawled through the streets of Rome.
Wow.
My other one was drafted in Korea, and he's 93, he's still alive.
Wow.
He says he's going to live to be 100. I think he's going to live to be 100. But I mean, like,
That's that generation.
yeah, that's that generation, and he does his own thing. And I was at home for my grandmother's funeral, and I'm on the phone with my wife. Yeah, hon, I'm flying out in a couple days. He comes outside and he pokes his head out and he goes, "I'm gonna make a sandwich. I can do that." And I'm like, "Okay, Pop. Let me know if you need anything." But
That's
but you
awesome.
know, yeah, it's awesome. But you know, the funny thing about my grandfather Sawka, he was a farmer, right? He was a Democrat, blue collar Democrat.
Back
you know,
then, the
worked in
Democrats were
the
more
fields, right?
conservative.
And I have his youngest son out of 12, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So his youngest son out of 12, I'm really good friends with. He's like my older brother, but he's my uncle. I talk to him once a week on the phone. We talk video games, we talk sports, we talk politics, whole 9 yards, right? We talk family. And you romanticize these people in your mind, and you think to yourself, and I'm like, yeah, well, I bet you Grandpap would be a Trumper. And he's like, Nick, are you out of your effing mind? I'm like, this guy was a blue collar Democrat. And then every so often, whenever I start getting into that mode, like, I bet you Grandpap, he'll send me a picture of Reagan and Mondale and the statistics, and he'll go, your grandfather was one of the 38 million that voted for Mondale.
Really?
Yeah, because of the fact that, you know, in our heads, we sort of romanticize, you know, these people. We sort of build them up, make them larger than life.
My family comes from a background Democrats. My grandparents were Democrats. A lot of people were because that was the working class.
And it was different.
It
I
was
mean,
different.
you look at Kennedy. There's no way in hell Kennedy
he
is
would be a
able to
right
run.
winger today.
Oh my God, he'd be extreme right wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's hang out with the Soviets and shake hands and
Right.
and get along to get along.
Yeah.
and,
They'd
and-
have some Russian collusion shit on him too.
yeah.
You know.
I mean, you know, so, but yeah, and that was the other thing too. You know, even whenever I ran for school board, right, and you know, talking about local politics, there was this thing going around that I'm Russian Orthodox, right?
Mhm.
So I was an altar boy growing up, whole 9 yards. Well, there was a thing that I wasn't Christian. Well, that's not entirely true either. I accepted Christ into my life in 2004, but I was also baptized in a Russian Orthodox church. And there's something to say for that. But I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my heritage. And I'll tell you why. Because my grandfather helped liberate Italy during World War II, crawled through the streets of Rome. I've got his service record to prove that. Came home, married his pen pal, had 12 kids with her, and then became the president of that church and became the president of the American Legion,
Wow.
and worked a 30-acre farm for the last 40 years of his life. So yeah, guess what? I'm proud to be Russian Orthodox. I'm proud to be a Christian. But these people went around and spreaded all these rumors about me, and it goes back to the same Dave Reichert and Semi Bird thing. You're tearing one candidate down.
Oh, I know. That's the thing that drives me about. Look, I love Lynden, but you know, if you're not in the Dutch Reform kind of thing, unfortunately, yeah, I mean,
It
that
sucks.
is it is a problem. Yeah, it is a problem because, nobody's perfect, and, let's all put on our good, and I'm not trying to I don't want to get into ripping on them, but I've been around Lynden long enough to know, and I'm kind of inoculated from it. I'm just evangelical Christian, right? I'm just Jesus. That's it.
Yep.
I'm pretty simple.
Yep.
And so, I do get the Reformed theology. I agree with some of it and stuff, but I just don't get, the thing is Lynden has a tradition, and again, I'm not trying to rip them, but it's kind of, what church do you go to? And then you start playing Dutch bingo, and my cousin goes to this church, and if you're not part of that, that old hat still exists a little bit to where, and so what does that have to do with running for school board, though? That's the part I don't get.
And my kids both go to North County Christ the King. I mean, they both go to the youth programs that they
Kurt's
have there.
great, and they're
Because because I believe that is an excellent place for anybody, and I believe it's an excellent place for to send your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one kid, my oldest is going to actually help out and be a leader. And my youngest is going to go to their adventure camp that they have every summer.
Right.
And whenever you see these things and you walk down the streets of Lynden and this community picnic or this church is putting this on, like, it's a phenomenal place to live.
Absolutely.
And not everybody that's coming in is coming to, tarnish that. I think you can add to it.
No, I agree with that. However, on the flip side of that, you mentioned something earlier about how does these things get to where they are, and the problem is you get, and I'm just going to say it. I'm going to upset some people, but I've been watching it happen. You get these people coming from cities like Seattle and Bellingham, who are leaving what they voted for, the disasters that they created with their vote and their support. The crime, the politics, in order to come to a nice, safe, conservative town that is safe and is clean. And then what? You're going to bring your vote here and destroy this town along with it? Because you know that enough of you move here, that's what's going to happen. They're not going to be voting for the conservative thing, the candidate. They're not going to be voting for, keeping the whole sex ed thing out of school. They're going to start bringing that progressive vote into our town.
And I think that's where you got to draw the line. Like, even with, even like we had talked about with the track meet on the phone.
Right. That latest track meet with the transgender guy. What I'm asking for isn't radical. I mean, I just think that what should have happened the second that individual crossed the finish line, they should have been the number one transgender girl in the state of Washington. And the second that female crossed the line, she should have been the number one female in the state of Washington. Like, we cannot lose women's sports. Right.
Like, women's sports are so vital. And here's another thing from the campaign trail. I used to knock on people's doors and they would say, "Oh, you support women's sports?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a 21st century feminist." And they said, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "Well, I want my daughter to use the restroom with other girls, and I want her to play on sports teams that only have females on it." And they said, "I could get behind that." You know, the majority of them would laugh and chuckle. But sports are so important in general, whether it's boy sports, girl sports, it doesn't matter. But what it provides for young ladies in the sense of teamwork, camaraderie, communications, leadership, I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah.
And we've got to preserve that at all costs. I mean, look at Caitlin Clark, right? Like, she's throwing down threes from 40 feet away?
Yeah.
Like, it ain't nobody's business. Mm-hmm. And the only thing the WNBA is trying to do is tear her down. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, she got kicked. She was not eligible for the women's basketball Olympic team. We have to elevate women, no matter what their color is, no matter where they come from. If they're doing something in order to perform women's sports, improve it, then we need to make sure that we shine a light on that.
Yeah.
And we can't do that by having people essentially scratch at the integrity of that,
right,
of what Title IX meant.
Right.
Because Title IX was based up, it's anti-discrimination law. And when you look at it on its face value, because I sent stuff to the WIAA, which is the governing body of sports in Washington, and they sent me back a bunch of state legislation and this and that, and you can't discriminate. But at nowhere in that entire thing does it equate gender identity as being equal to sex. If anything, it says it's something separate.
Yeah.
Therefore, you must treat it separate.
Yeah.
In girls' sports, in track and field records should be intact by biological females and biological females only.
Right.
But I'm not a hater.
Where are the feminists, by the way?
Yes.
Where did they go all of a sudden?
Why am I out here? I'm a dude. I'm a bald
Right.
guy. I'm supposed to be the devil. I'm a bald white guy.
Right. And you're standing up for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to.
But that's how upside down things have become
Yeah.
because of, I'm sorry, mentally ill, very stupid people who have worked their way into our higher places, our education system, our school boards, our unions, school unions, our politics. We've allowed these people to get in here, and it's a minority running the majority. Look, the majority of Americans are going, no.
Time out.
Hold
Yep.
on. No.
Time out.
no.
Let's reconfigure
You're not,
this.
that guy is not going, he goes into that woman's locker room with my daughter, there's going to be a throwdown.
And I think that honestly, people need to start standing up. And this goes back to even politics on the county level. We should never have a blank slate. If there is a position open, even if we select one of our own that we know won't win, and, like the county assessor, right? Just put a name in there, run a name.
Right.
Always give
Right.
somebody a choice. That's the thing. Always run somebody because,
and vote.
And vote.
The problem is, I was talking to Lyle Sorensen because he follows the numbers correctly. This last election we had, where Tank Abbott, or not Tank Abbott, that was the old fighter, Tank, what's his name?
Tankersley.
Turksley,
Yeah.
whatever, this guy, who's a huge A.G. Ferguson supporter. One of the reasons he won, I don't know, I'm not so suspicious that there was cheating. But anyway, it was only 30% of registered Republicans came out to vote.
Well, and here's something that's going to blow your mind, even whenever you look at the Democrats, right? You got 100,000 people living in Bellingham, but only 20,000 people vote in their mayoral election. Like, there has to be votes out there to get. Yeah. And by the raw numbers, based on what I see, I think Republicans even outnumbered Democrats in Whatcom County.
Yeah. But the districting,
we're pretty darn close. Yeah. And I just think that we need to. If it was up to me and I had $1 million, I would just drive around in the car, start knocking on doors, saying, "Hey, did you vote yet? Can I get that ballot? Can I get that ballot?" Because there's nothing illegal about you taking your neighbor's ballot to the ballot box.
No, they do it. They harvest ballots all the time.
Yeah.
Did you see 2,000 mules?
I have not. I try to stay away from 2020 election stuff because I just feel like mentally, I knew there was stuff that was going on, and I just honestly, maybe I'm just being a little naive. I don't want to confirm it. I would rather just live in my own mind. And think,
that's fine. Yeah. My thing with that though is I'm just going to use simple logic. At that time, I was traveling around the country. I was working for a company that installs batting cages, and I was doing these installs. I traveled to California, Texas, Louisiana, Michigan, Illinois. I was all over, and it was Trump everywhere. Even in California, you'd go to somebody's property to work, and they, the other construction guys there, or even maybe sometimes the owner's like, "Yeah, so who you supporting?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I don't usually typically get into that with," and they're like, "Oh, well, we like Trump." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. And then I'd be like, but everywhere I go, you go to the Trump rallies even now, tens of thousands of people. There's maybe 250 at a Biden rally. Just on logic alone.
There's 30 and 15 of them are staff.
Right. Right. So if you're a Democrat, you really, really, really think he won?
Well, my only thing is this. I'll tell you a story. So I was in the military. I was registered to vote in Pennsylvania. Right, throughout my entire career, I had mail-in ballots. They would mail me a ballot. So I took 3 days off, and I said, "There's no way in hell I'm missing this." I drove from Detroit, Michigan, 6 hours to Brownsville, Pennsylvania. Stayed at my mom's house, hung out with my mom, voted, hopped back in my car, went back home. Well, we all went out for breakfast after we voted, and we're sitting in this diner, and the guy comes up, knows my dad. "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, hey, how'd everything go? Who'd you vote for?" He's like, "Oh, man." He's like, "I had to vote for Trump." And he started talking, and he said he owned a bike shop. And under Trump, he was able to hire 3 more people. And his business was booming.
Yeah.
And
I remember businesses. I remember the company I was working for. We were given raises. They got tax cuts. There was all kinds. It's just the economy was booming. It was one of the best economies we had since Reagan. And like I said, our borders were getting cleaned up.
Yep.
Crime from illegal immigration was down. We were deporting people. Honestly though, just digressing a minute, you know who deported more than anyone?
Barack.
Obama.
Yeah.
Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Joe Biden and him differ. I think that's why some people
He
actually
hates Biden.
Yeah. Well, he hates them now. But think about this, right? Like, you can go back, you can watch this video clip of Mayorkas and him back in like 2019 saying, I want a wave of, immigration, blah, 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 blah. White man's the devil. And like literally in so many words, he said that. And I have no problem with legal immigration, but you have to go through the process.
That's right.
And whenever everybody seeks asylum, then asylum has no value, right?
But that's not what is even going on right now. My problem is what's going on with the border now has to do with the immigration. It has to do with an infiltration. Yeah. We're being invaded. We got thousands coming across every day. They're estimating there's upward of 10 million that have been let in over the past several years.
The only thing I can think of is that they are priming the pump for a war.
Absolutely.
And they're gonna start pulling these guys off the streets and throwing them in uniforms.
Absolutely.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, even though the Democrats claim it, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Oh no.
And they'll be on the front. They'll be on the front lines just as much as the next guy beside them.
They're busting them everywhere. We've got Chinese. We've got Palestinians. We've got Zimbabwe, Iranians. I mean, you name it. I mean, and there's already sleeper cells here. These people aren't just assimilating. Oh, well, they just want jobs. And then why are most of them military-age males?
Yeah.
The first influx, there was women and children among them, and then all of a sudden that stopped, and it's all just men coming across.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a compassionate guy. If you told me like, hey, we need to extract these 20,000 people or they're going to die and we need to bring them to America and we need to grant them citizenship, I'd be like, cool, let's do it. Let's help these people out. But at a certain point, we're cutting off our own nose to spite our face. And we've got military veterans on the streets, addicted to drugs, addicted to painkillers, homeless.
Yeah.
And we can't help them out.
Yeah.
I lived in Detroit, right? I spent my last 3 years at the Coast Guard in Detroit. And it was some of the saddest stuff that I ever seen. Why can't we help those people out first? Why can't we fix the water supply in Flint? Why can't we fix the water supply in Jackson, Mississippi, both of which are unsuitable to drink? We've got a lot of stuff going on at home. And the one thing that I compare the current state of America to...
No, Nick, no. We have to focus on Ukraine.
Yeah. We have to. And the big thing that I equate America to in its current state as it is today is this real nice house on this real nice, well manicured block. And you see this nice woman and this nice guy. Oh, he must work out. She must play tennis. The kids look nice. The quarterback of the football team, cheerleading captain. And you go on inside the house and you find out that the dad is an alcoholic and the mother is a pill popper and she's sleeping with the tennis coach and the kids are
dysfunctional as can be.
Dysfunctional as can be.
Yep.
and the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
And that's what we've turned into.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to live like that.
No.
That's why, I wake up, I tell my kids, just do good,
Yeah.
and if you can go to bed at night. And this is another funny story. I used to have a guy served in the military. He said, Sawka, you're doing the right thing if you envision yourself on 60 Minutes and you can adequately explain your actions. And I said, you know what? You're right. Because, you've seen 60 Minutes take people to task time and time again, back before they really went for, full TDS, right? I can't watch it anymore. But that's the whole thing. You have to try to just be the best person that you can be and hope everything works out. You've got to start local. And that's why I don't want to, I don't have aspirations to be like a county commissioner. I don't have aspirations to be a state senator or a senator. The only thing I want to do is raise a couple decent kids. That's it. And if that means being on the school board to make sure that I know what's going on, so that whenever parents question if there's a kitty litter box in the bathroom, I can say, hey, man, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm fighting so hard for this new high school. Because my thought process is, from a fiscal standpoint, it makes sense. You buy it now. You buy it at a decent price.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids need it. Like the school right now is overpopulated by about 100.
Yeah, that school's old.
150 heads. The school itself, which I didn't know this, the mayor put this out in his article because he's supporting it. The mayor put out that it was built with residential building supplies, whereas the schools nowadays, like, have you ever been to the new Lynden Middle School? It's industrial.
Yeah.
Like everything is built to scale, and it's you can tell. Like, it would take a tornado to rip that thing out of its foundation.
Yep.
And I just think that, like, our kids deserve better.
Yep.
The only thing we need is just people to vote yes. I think because here's what's going to happen. We are going to be in a situation where Lynden is going to experience several booms over the next couple years.
Yep.
They're anticipating an influx of like 300 kids, just at like the high school level over the next 6 years, right? There's going to be like 6,000 families or something that actually move into Lynden. So my numbers could be off, but we're going to have a big influx of people. And I told a lady who was, against it because it was too much. I said, look, every business that opens, every house that is built lowers your piece of the pie. The most you're ever going to pay is probably the first couple of years. It will get cheaper.
Yep.
And then imagine what $60 will be by the time you actually pay that off. I mean, you're going to be able to buy a quarter pounder with cheese with $60 in 2040, especially if Uncle Joe gets reelected. Yeah. I mean, the gloves are going to come off. You know what I mean? You're going to,
and it won't even be real meat. It'll be that new 3D printed meat.
No, don't tell me about that.
Oh yeah, Bill Gates, and they got. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that stuff, but I digress.
You know what? That's one reason why I don't own an Xbox. I can't give my money to Bill Gates. I'm Sony.
I know.
I'd rather give my money to Sony than give it to Bill Gates.
I know. That's it. You got to pick and choose your battles. But so Nick, what's up next for you?
Well, I'm going to stay involved in the local party. I think that we need to strengthen it. We need to get more people involved. We need to get young people involved. I want to push the values that are going to make this country great, as far as taking care of our own, protecting our kids, things like that. I just want to be a good neighbor. And that's what's next for me. But I'm going to run again in 2025. I'll run again in 2027, 2029, at least until my kids are out, because I feel as if I could really do a good job of being a school board member. Because think about it. These people, they get the job, they like pretty much disappear. I don't want to do that. I want to be like, hey, we're discussing science curriculum. You really need to come to this meeting. Or the school board's going to pass this measure. You really need to come here. And I've probably been to about 70% of them in the last 2.5 years. I call myself the fifth Beatle. Whenever I go. And, some people on the board, they hate me. Other people on the board don't mind me. Some love me. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make sure my kids have a decent life and make sure that other people's kids have a decent life.
So what do you think it is that your detractors, so to speak, don't like about you?
I can actually tell you, they had the nickname for me, or the thing that they were saying was I was abrasive.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
But here's the thing.
So
though.
you hurt feelers.
Yes. But here's the thing.
Okay.
I would rather somebody come up to me and tell me, say, hey man, this is the stone cold truth. This is what's happening. This is where your tax dollars are going. Besides a politician that's going to look at you, smile, and piss on your head and say it's raining.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in that business.
So they're probably the same people that don't like Trump.
Or they're the same people that, would rather, tuck their head at the first sign of any sort of confrontation.
Oh, well, that's the thing. We can't have confrontation. I mean, look, and there's an articulate way to do something. You can be confrontational without being confrontational. Yeah. You can be very articulate. And sitting here with you, I sensed some of that where you've gotten very firm in what you're saying, but you were very polite about it.
Yeah.
And you can do that. There's no reason to be, you don't have to be overtly an asshole and still be an asshole.
Yep.
You can be a very polite, charismatic asshole. Yep. I mean, I get told that all the time. And that's just by my girlfriend. So, but I mean, it's about asking questions, critical thinking. And people don't like that. They don't like to be challenged.
They don't like to be challenged. They don't like to be placed outside of their comfort zone.
Right.
And that's the big thing. Like, I don't see myself as an individual that wants to play ball. I would rather do what's right. And my principle, I'm very strong in my convictions and my principles. Yeah. Like if I'm almost certain that this is the right way to go, it would take research in order to change my vote. And for some people, they get kind of intimidated by that. But also you got to put in the time too, right? Like my thought process is I'm in a very unique position because I do my job so I don't go insane. You know what I mean? It's not a driving factor of how I put, food on the table. And my wife works at the schools, so she does that. And we're just really ingrained in them, and we want to see the best for the community. And I feel that I'm in a position where I can donate the best or the larger amount of time. And if somebody did come down from the state and was like, you need to do this, or we're going to do this, I think I'd be in a more better position to stand up.
And that's what I'm thinking is we need people like you. And I have to believe, Nick, that there are those as well that are also on your side. Mm-hmm. You have your detractors, but there's also the going, no. We need a guy like Nick to counter those that aren't. Yep. So you can be an influence on those. Sometimes you need a leader who's sometimes, as you say, abrasive to pull up the other people whose life vest is not keeping them out of the water.
That's right.
To bring it into a nautical term there.
Yep. Makes me feel at home.
Right. If your life vest isn't keeping you out of the water, who's going to pull you up? Yeah. The guy who's like, well, I don't know. I don't want
I never want to be that guy.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to be that guy that will tell you one thing to your face and tell you something else behind your back. I just, my integrity means a lot to me. And like I could tell you that,
everything.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, like, all this stuff they're cutting down Semi Bird about an administrative remark in his record. Right. I told some people, I said, look, man, if you think that's bad, I mean, I've got about 5 of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I was not the most squared away sailor because I would call people on their bullshit.
Yeah.
But if you called up 10 of the people I served with, 2 are going to say that I'm the biggest shitbag on the planet, and 8 of them are going to say that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're going to say that I'm a better person for working with Nick.
Yeah.
And those are the things that matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got, look, I've had people say, you ever think about running for politics? I says, okay, first of all, I'm just a loud mouth with an opinion. Okay. And I'm best at just doing that because I can't play by their rules.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And if they start digging into my past, I mean, you know, it's
Game over.
it's a Netflix series, man. I mean, so yeah, I'm best. You know, this is what I love to do. I love to feature people. I love to talk to people. I love to give people a platform where they can say, look, this is what I want to do for my community. And I think it's great what you're purporting to do and what you want to do for your community, and starting on a local level. And schools, man, schools are so important. So important, right?
So
Especially
important.
right now. They're almost one of the most crucial things.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing everything in order to get my name out for my next run. I mean, I'm writing in the Tribune. I try to put out a piece every month, going to the school board meetings. I'm also putting out, you know, some good news. If I find out that a school's doing something good, like Lynden had like 14 valedictorians.
Really?
Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Like, that's not an easy feat.
Great.
Like, I mean, I was a 3.25 kind of guy. You know what I mean? Not a 4.0.
I was a 0.235 guy.
But yeah, you know,
My teachers passed me just because they didn't want me back. So
I believe it. I had a Spanish teacher like that. I know how that ball rolls.
you know, anything else you'd want to say to the audience, just, you know, moving forward, that you're really hoping that'll happen here in this next year in Lynden?
Well, I'm hoping we continue to grow as a community. I'm going to continue to get out there, get my name out there. If anybody wants to read anything about me, you can go to nicksawka.com. I've got a website, and that's where I post a lot of my writings.
Now, you're a precinct leader now for the Republican Party as well?
I am, yeah. So
Okay.
I'm actually filling Kathy Kirshner's old seat,
Okay.
precinct committee officer 610, because she didn't want to do it again, and you know, young blood, right?
Right.
Go, Nick, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Do what you can do.
I think you got the tenacity for it. You got the intellect. So,
Yeah.
What kind of things do you do when you do that, real quick?
So you vote on county measure, or like Republican Party county measures. Like, we have a central committee meeting, you know, bylaws, endorse candidates, you know, get out the vote initiatives, call people in your precinct. Hey man, you haven't sent in your ballot yet, you know, things like that. And I look forward to that because, you know, the only way we're going to affect change is if whenever that ballot comes in the mail, we send it in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's do your duty, especially this time. It's crucial right now. Everybody's got to get out there and vote.
That's right.
Yeah. Nick Sawka, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, and I appreciate your drive to, you know, be part of your community and be an influence and an intellectual force. We appreciate that, and we need more people like you. So, and one more time, where can people check you out?
You can check me out at my website, nicksawka.com, for all your Nick Sawka needs. Free shipping on orders over $50.
All
No,
right.
there's nothing for sale there.
You should see his skincare cream. I mean, look at this guy's skin. I mean, he doesn't even have a wrinkle. You know, we're gonna get you. I got to do the Gandalf thing.
No,
See what that
please
looks
do.
like.
I got to see what it looks like.
Nick, good to have you, man. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet. All right, everybody, that's it this time around for the Urban Outcast. We will see you again soon. Take care.